officially at day 5. Wow. Progress, steps forward are being made. I think today for me is one of those days where I'm feeling more incapable than otherwise. So, it's one, a bit of a late start, and two, a bit of a rocky start. I did try to do some things differently, but that's not working out. So we're gonna take all of the ideas for difference and hold on to it until I can like hammer it out and make it function right. So you know what? I'm not trying to. This is a challenge, like I said. I'm not trying to get caught up in making it right off the bat. Because if I keep doing that, I'm just not going to do the foundational work, which is just reading the Bible. Today, we're going to jump in by reading through Genesis 16, through Genesis 18, and then we're going to take a look at Psalms 5. Yeah, that should be about where we are. The Bible right now, it's been a trip. Like, it's definitely mentions so much in what doesn't feel like that many pages. So much has happened, from the rise and the fall to the flooding to the actually, it was Babylon. The Tower of Babel was after the flooding, yes, and to the confounding of language and the scattering. And it really, right now we're seeing a lot of like godly intervention when humans keep going to the dark side. A lot of violence, a lot of we just finished talking about the first couple of wars over, I'm assuming, nations and goods. Sodom and Gomorrah just got destroyed. And then Abram, soon to be Abraham, goes to battle to rescue his nephew Lot. And I had my reservations about that man being able to do such terrific battle, I guess, to be able to go into to fight mode, to defend, I guess, his nephew, but not his wife. I know that that's just more of a modern intake, but yeah, it's still like, oh, come on, you couldn't give me a little, like, come on, you couldn't give me that same energy for Sarai, come on. But yeah, Abram also gets blessed at the end of his victory by Melchizedek, who is a high priest of God. He will eventually, I think he's a reoccurring character, but right now it was really just an appeared. He gained a 10% tithing, first tithing really, from Abram, to out of all of the goods that he had at the time. Now, this was right after his victory, so he had a lot of goods. And then he returned, which was honestly one of my favorite parts, where he returns a whole bunch of the goods that he gained from... He gained a whole bunch of goods from all of this battling and recovering goods from what the previous 5 kings had pillaged. And instead of keeping them or returning them for his own wealth and riches, when the king of Sodom asks for his people back, he goes and he's like, you can keep the wealth. He's like, I don't want even a thread or a shoelace. It wasn't a shoelace, but like, I don't want even a thread or a shoelace out of what was yours. because I don't want you to have the ability to say that you made me rich. And he says this all on God. He's like, I promise on God I will be returning everything that could have ever been yours, because I don't want anything to do with it, lest you have the ability to say you're the one who made me rich. I thought that was really impressive, because it's making sure that God is doing everything you can to make sure God has all the glory for your victories, right? You don't want anyone to be like, okay, he has that because I did this or whatever. Or like, you don't want anyone to try to be playing a hand in your victory. Now, there will be some people who egotistically will try to be like, oh, you only got that because of me, or you only did this because I was involved, or try to take credit for the works that you've put in. But the strength and faith will be your reminder of like, no, I put in a lot of groundwork, but I know deep within the core of me that the groundwork was my own and the elevation was on God. Okay? The only person working with me, the only being working with me to help me achieve my success is God Almighty. So you can try to claim whatever credit you want to claim. It's not possible, because all glory goes to God. And that's the energy I was getting. That's the energy I received from that verse. I'm actually going to look it up because I want to be able to quote the position of that verse. I think it was at day 15. I also highlighted it. What it wasn't 15, was it 13? No. If it wasn't 15, it was probably 14. Yes, at 14. Genesis 14 verses 22 and 23. And the reason I highlighted this in green because I felt like it was such a chain breaking phrase to really hold on to. Do not give anyone the opportunity, whether it is about money or glory, success, fame, anything good, like whether it is about any of that, do not give people the opportunity to say, I made you, or you have that because I had it, I played the part, so he goes on to say, I'm going to go back one from verse 21. The king of Sodom said to Abram, give back my people who were captured, but you may keep for yourself all the goods you have recovered. And Abram replied to the king of Sodom. He's saying this to a king. I solemnly swear to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a single thread or saddle thong or sandal thong from what belongs to you. Otherwise, you might say, I am the one who made Abram rich. It's like, I don't want you to have that ability, that credit. No. So I'm not taking a single thing because God's going to provide for me. I'm good. God's going to keep me safe. God's going to take me where I need to be. God has a hand in this. God played a hand in my victory. Not you. Not your riches. Not what I recovered from you. None of that is worth me holding on to. Basically, it was like he didn't see any value in holding on to this because it would have tainted the glory that belonged to God. And I want to seek that wisdom into me. Okay. enough about yesterday's and the next day's whatever. This is today. I posted all the links to the videos. One was about Melchizedek and Abraham and their blessing moment. Excuse me. Video 2 is about Genesis 12 through 50 and giving you a broad overview of what happens in the outlining of that story. It's pretty much just an outline. Again, it's a visual outline. Like, I can't stress enough how much I love the Bible Project. You will hear me say those words a lot. You will see a lot of their videos pop up. I just love it. It's something that they do to help gain clarity for what we're reading. So good. And then the third video also from the Bible Project is about covenants and what it really means to not only have your personal relationship with God, to not only strive for a personal relationship to God, but to really work on understanding what promises God has made to humanity, right? So far, we've seen a couple of promises God made, mainly to Noah about never flooding the earth again and putting that rainbow up in the sky. And then we saw another promise with Abram about how his descendants will number the stars, and all of the lands that touches the light will belong to your descendants, you and your descendants. So when we jump into Genesis 16, we'll really be looking into or trying to lean into his ability to have faith in that promise that God has given him, that he will have, the land will be his and his descendants, and he will have many a descendant. Y'all. So here we go. This is the devotional for today. Also, forgive me, my voice is still a little raw, so I'm probably going to be sounding a little off. That might just be me. I don't know. Who knows? The Bible's main way of talking about God's relationship to humanity is the image of a partnership. This video traces the way, this is the video about covenants, traces the way God entered into a series of formal relationships with various human partners in order to rescue the world through Jesus, the ultimate covenant partner. A lot of the chaos that stems in the Bible so far is because covenants are broken not by Jesus but by human hands. So there's, the covenant between Adam and Eve, which is like the first covenant that's broken. Hey, all of this is yours. I've promised it to you. You are like me. You are made in my image. You are God's. In your own right. Maybe not God's. I don't know. You are close to me. Just do me a favor. Look after this space. Don't eat of that tree over there, because then you're going to die. And yeah. And then we're good, right? So then God goes about his business, and then, serpents in and whisper all of the deceit. And technically, depending on here's how the devil's lie worked in the garden, the first one. It was saying that you wouldn't die, right? It was like, you won't die. You'll just have as much knowledge as God has. Which is exactly, in a sense, true. It was a play on words, right? God was talking about, if you eat of that fruit, you're going to die a spiritual death. And the serpent was manipulating that by saying, you won't die because physically you'd still be here. It's not a physical death. It's not even a mental one. But that spiritual death is such a great metaphorical that it mattered. Like, so when these covenants get broken, it also again spirals into such destruction. Covenant broken covenant, destruction. Covenant, broken covenant, destruction. And the cycle repeats all the way up into Jesus. We know that much. Who had the covenant, who was prophesied, who shows up, who labors for our sake, and then sacrifice. So, yeah, I want to learn how to keep the promises that I make to God in prayer. It's like, well, it's one of those, like, oh, God, if you give me these, da-da-da-da-da. You know when you're bargaining? I don't know. Y'all know when you're bargaining. And you're like, God, yo, if you could just see me through this, I'll do da-da-da-da-da. I'll do such and such and such. And it's an interesting relationship or dynamic there. But I want to stop doing that and just know that, one, I'm walking in victory, and two, everything I say, I'm trying to put power behind the truth of my words. Like, I know sometimes I'll speak, and that's that. Like, I said it, but I didn't have any intention to the weight of the words. But I'm trying to keep, like, this challenge is one of those things where I was trying to keep a promise to not only myself, but the words that I've spoken into existence, because they matter. Genesis 16, the birth of Ishmael. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So Sarai not being able to give birth to children, especially when the promise God made to Abram and Sarai is that their descendants would, mainly Abram, would number the stars. So through the doubt, they're like, oh, but we don't have kids and we can't have kids, and I'm old and no kids, and da-da-da, how is this possible? So we start to see some shake in their faith here at Genesis 16:2. So Sarai said to Abram, the Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her. And Abram agreed with Sarai's proposal. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. Okay, so I'm assuming they've been trying for a really long, 10 plus years, you know? Okay, fine. Y'all been trying for a really long time. The doubt has a lot of time to seep in and really mush your mind. So she's like, okay, look, we've tried and we've tried and we've tried, and I cannot give you a child. And your children are supposed to number the stars. So here, have my servant, make her become your wife, have a child with her, and maybe I'll have a child through her. I don't understand. But so Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who's wrong, you or me." Abram replied, "Look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit." Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. See, okay, I think this is the first time I've read this portion right here. I always got the story told as soon as Sarai realized Hagar was pregnant, she started treating her very harshly and like was jealous and this, that, and the third. But the person who threw the first stone was Hagar. When she realized, oh, I'm pregnant, I finally accomplished something you've been trying to accomplish this whole time. I'm going to treat you like you're less than. Because that's what contemptuous treatment is. Like, I'm better than you. It's such a complicated, like, dynamic right there. Like, I just want, like, especially in a day and age where women's quote unquote ability or worth is tied so firmly to their ability to produce sons. I won't even say procreate, but produce sons. To go through so many years of having relations with your husband and not being able to give them a sign at all of any children. The amount of internal strife and self-devaluation you're putting on yourself. Like, oh, I can't do this. I can't, da da da. And then to finally be like, all right, well, here, maybe this is going to be the solution. It sounds weird to be like, oh, Sarai gave Abram her servant to have a child with the servant. But even in modern day and age, we have surrogate wives. Like, we have surrogate parents and stuff, That's, I don't know the conversation that happened in their bedrooms. That's between them. Here's the decisions that they made. Of course, they made those decisions, and we're judging them because they made them with a lack of faith. But it's logical. Like, the logic is there. You worked so hard, and you want children, and you're trying to create God's, or keep God's covenant so hard, so strongly. You're trying to push for this covenant to come into reality that you slip and you start to try to produce the covenant yourself and leave God out of it. And that's what happens here, is just a slip of like, I want this covenant to come true so badly. I'm pushing and driving myself as far as I can push and drive myself to make it happen. As if this covenant can happen in human terms. That's when we start to see the fuzz, right? Is when we stop realizing where we no longer have control. Like, we're pushing so hard, planning so hard, and we stop realizing where we no longer have control. And we keep pushing past our control. That's where we start to lose some faith. That's where things get like a little rocky. But like, this all makes sense to me. I don't agree, obviously. But logically, she takes this servant and she's like, this woman's gonna be my surrogate. And then the surrogate starts getting all hoity-toity, and then she's like, I gotta put the surrogate in her place. And she does that, I guess, again, with such jealousy and a mixture of emotions that the servant runs off and has her baby elsewhere. The Genesis 16:7. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness, along the road of Shur. The angel said to her, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from, and where are you going? I am running away from my mistress Sarai, she replied. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. Then he added, I will give you more descendants than you can count. And the angel also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears. For the Lord has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will rise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. sees me. She also said, have I truly seen the one who sees me? So what will be, so that well was named Berlaharoi, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. Wow, okay. So Ishmael is born, and then it's crazy. This verse 12 right here, where it's like, because your son will be in open hostility to everyone and rage against everyone, and everyone will rage against him. And wow, I look forward to seeing what becomes of Ishmael. Abram is named Abraham. Oh, okay. When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. That's the first time we hear God being referred to as El Shaddai. I have methods, and so when I get a name of God or Jesus or the Holy Spirit, I highlight them purple because I want to be able to look back and see all of the different names. And then when I see names of like important characters or notable characters, I highlight them like a light lavender or something. It's all color coordinated. At least I attempt to keep it color coordinated, because making sense of nonsense is what I do best. I will make a covenant with you. Oh, wait. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you, by which I will guarantee to you countless descendants. At this, Abram fell face down on the ground. Then God said to him, this is my covenant with you. I will give you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I am changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you, and I will give you the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God. I wonder what it means to live a blameless life. The mark of the covenant. 9. Then God said to Abraham, your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant. You and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Each male among you must be circumcised. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. Sarai is named Sarah. Then God said to Abraham, regarding Sarai, your wife, her name will no longer be Sarai. From now on, her name will be Sarah. I wonder why God doesn't talk to Sarai. And I will bless her and give you a son from her. Yes, I will bless her richly, and she will become the mother of many nations. Kings of nations will be among her descendants. Then Abraham bowed down to the ground, but he laughed to himself in disbelief. How could I become a father at the age of 100? He thought. Oh, he said he thought this. Okay, good. He kept it to himself. And how can Sarah have a baby when she is 99 years old? So Abram said to God, may Ishmael live under your special blessing. But God replied, no, Sarah, your wife, will give birth to a son for you. You will name him Isaac, and I will confirm my covenant with him and his descendants as an everlasting covenant. As for Ishmael, I will bless him also, just as you have asked. I will make him extremely fruitful and multiply his descendants. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be confirmed with Isaac, who will be born to you and Sarah about this time next year. When God had finished speaking, he left Abraham. That's it. When he finished speaking, he left. He dropped his news. He delivered his information, was out. There was no more time for you to be like, no, but like, can you do it this way? Genesis 17:23. On the very day Abram took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including those born there and those he had bought, then he circumcised them, cutting off their foreskin just as God had told him. Wow! Ain't that making you... Here's the thing. To really be a follower of God, you're gonna end up looking crazy a lot. Because that same day, all of a sudden, you're rounding up everyone in your household, every male, every son in your household, and it doesn't even say that it was to age, because going forward, the goal is to do it on the 8th day of a baby's birth, you know, when they were still young, and probably they wouldn't have felt the pain or whatever. But now you're circumcising full-grown sons, or, you know, sons of varying ages, throughout your household, like, and even the servants who were born unto you, who were the ones who were born and purchased into your household, all of them are now round up, and now they're hearing the screams of circumcision from the men before them, and And nobody knows what's going on or why you're doing this, because I doubt you explained. But even if you did, they're like, what's going on? God told him to do what with my. And, you know, but it's radical. It's just so radical. I got a message from God and now I have to move this way. There was no time to go, okay, maybe I'll do it I'll get to it next week. I'll get to it tomorrow. The very day he gets this message from God himself, right? The Lord appeared to him, yes, from God himself, and he goes, even with the doubt of like, I'm 100 and Sarah's like 99. How are we birthing a kid? Okay, all right. And we've tried for so long already, like even with all of that doubt, right? So he's like, all right, well, I got my marching orders and I'm trying and I know what to do to keep my covenant. And I know what to do to receive this blessing. So now I have to put this marking on every male's body who's in my household. And we already know that Abraham's household was large, like, right? Because the last time we checked, the count was 318. And this is years after, so it's hovering around there. I assume if nothing changed, you know, it probably fluctuates some over them. He bought some more servants. So, like, it's a lot of people. And it's not like, maybe the practice of circumcision was already around, so it didn't seem that strange or whatever. But that, like, that radical shift, that's what faith will have you looking. All right, okay. On that very day, okay, cutting off their forks, and just as God has told him. And Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and Ishmael his son was 13. Both Abram and his son Ishmael were circumcised on that same day, along with all the other men and boys of the household, whether they were born there or bought as servants. All were circumcised with him. At least he led by example. Okay. A son is promised to Sarah. This is Genesis 18. The Lord appeared again to Abraham near the oak grove belonging to Namar. One day Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them, bowing low to the ground. "My lord," he said, "if it pleases you, stop here for a while." So the Lord appears to Abram at that oak tree, which has appeared a few times now in the story. And then one day, Abram, on the day, like, I guess he's just kind of chilling out by his tent and, whatever. And then he looks up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. It's the 3 men standing nearby to me. Right now I'm wondering if it's God, Jesus, if it's Trinity, like if he's seeing all of them. And then he says, "My Lord, if it pleases you, stop here for a while. Rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet. And since you've honored your servant with this visit, let me prepare some food to refresh you before you continue your journey." "All right," they said, "do as you have said." So Abram ran back to the tent and said to Sarah, "Hurry, get 3 large measures of your best flour, knead it into dough, and bake some bread." Then Abram ran out to the herd and chose a tender calf and gave it to his servant, who quickly prepared it. Then the food was ready. When the food was ready, Abram took some yogurt and milk and the roasted meat, and he served it to the men. As they ate, Abram waited on them in the shade of the trees. Right, so he's rolling out the red carpet for these 3 visitors here, and with the help of his household. Um, I guess I'm a little confused, but I'm gonna keep reading until. Okay, so he rolls out the red carpet. We're at Genesis 18:9. "Where is Sarah, your wife, the visitors?" "She's inside the tent." Where is Sarah, your wife? The visitors asked. "She's inside the tent," Abraham replied. Then one of them said, "I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. Abraham and Sarah were both very old by this time, and Sarah was long past the age of having children. So she laughed silently to herself and said, "How could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such a pleasure, especially when my master, my husband, is also so old?" Now this is Sarah saying that to herself. Then the Lord said to Abram, "Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, 'Can an old woman like me have a baby?' Is there anything too hard for the Lord? I will return about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she denied it, saying, "I didn't laugh." But the Lord said, "No, you did laugh." Why lie? Like, if you're afraid, just shut up. Like, just shut up. Stop speaking. Let the fear seal your mouth shut. But then to go into contention, now you're calling him a liar? Like, no, that wasn't the laugh you heard. You're lying. Don't you think that makes it worse? That puts you in a more precarious situation? Woo! Come on, Sarah. Come on. Abram intercedes for Sodom. Oh, it ends there, I guess. That whole section goes with the Lord said, "No, you did laugh." Okay. Abram intercedes for Sodom. Then the men got up from their. Actually, hold up. I have to believe that those 3 people who visited Abraham along with the Lord, like the 3 figures, are the Trinity. Or God and some angels? I don't make no sense. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. Whoa. But that's cool. That's like God telling you, "Hey, I'm gonna come back next year, and when I do, you'll be blessed. So prepare for that." Bye. Like, like God showing up chilling, enjoying in the feast that you're laying out for him, right? You getting the fresh meat, you getting the fresh bread baked, waters, all of the cheeses, and you laying out the spread, like the hospitality to show God. I want that. When God comes into my life, I want to lay out the red carpet, get them hospitality, go wash his feet, quote unquote. Wow. And then for him to be like, yeah, I'll be back this time next year and I'll give you the blessings that you guys have so patiently waited for. Okay. Then the men got up from their meal and looked out toward Sodom. As they left, Abram went with them to send them on their way. Should I hide my plan for Abraham? The Lord asked. For Abraham will certainly become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. I have singled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Then I will do for Abraham all that I have promised. So the Lord told Abraham, I have heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah, because their sin is so flagrant. I am going down to see if their actions are as wicked as I have heard. If not, I want to know. The other men turned and headed towards Sodom. But the Lord remained with Abraham. Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? Suppose you find 50 righteous people living there in the city. Will you still sweep it away and not spare it for their sakes? Surely you wouldn't do such a thing, destroying the righteous along with the wicked. Why you would be treating the righteous and the wicked exactly the same? Okay. It's like why you would be treating the righteous and the wicked exactly the same. Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not the judge of all the earth do what is right? That is a brave tongue right there to be mouthing up to the Lord. Woo! And then the Lord replied, If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake. Then Abram spoke again, Since I have begun, let me speak further to my Lord. Even though I am but dust and ashes, okay, suppose there are only 45 righteous people rather than 50. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And the Lord said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 righteous people there. Then Abraham pressed his request further. Suppose there are only 40. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it for the sake of the 40. Please don't be angry, my Lord, Abraham pleaded. Let me speak. Suppose only 30 righteous people are found. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it if I find 30. Then Abraham said, Since I have dared to speak to the Lord, let me continue. Suppose there are only 20. And the Lord replied, Then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 20. Finally, Abraham said, Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak one more time. Suppose only 10 are found there. And the Lord replied, Then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 10. When the Lord had finished his conversation with Abraham, he went on his way, and Abraham returned to his tent. That's such a tense. That's such a interesting exchange. I know it sounded repetitive because it was just the following of the increment, but essentially the point that's being driven home is that the Lord will spare a whole city of wickedness, a whole city and their wicked people, if but a few righteous people exist in that space for the sake of the righteous people. And the thing is, like, the wicked won't even realize that they're being spared for the sake of the righteous. They won't even realize that they're receiving the blessings of the righteous people next to them. Instead, they're going around mocking the righteous like, ha ha ha, I have more than I have, I'm doing what I want and I have all of this and look at how good my life is and look at you. You're so restrained by your righteousness and you're in lack or you're in blah 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 and you're struggling. Whatever the case may be. Also, the bravery of Abraham. And I mean, I know he says it a few times, like, don't be angry with me. Like, I'm really just trying to understand here. How far will you go to cleanse the city, even if you find but a few righteous? Is 50 where it would be enough? Would 45, 30, 35, 20? How many is enough to get you to spare the city? I would have really loved if they went one increment lower and was like, what if you find only 5? Like, is that enough to spare a whole city? Whose wicked what is it? The voice of the wicked or the sin or whatever, the outcry. I have heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah because their sin is so flagrant. To be sinning in such high capacity that sound is ringing out in heaven and bringing the Lord to your doorstep because he has to see for himself just how bad it is over there, just how great, and I am going down to see if their actions are as wicked as I have heard. So he's trying to find grace here. If not, I want to know, right? Because he's holding out a hope that maybe it's not as bad as it sounds in heaven. Because in heaven it sounded pretty bad. So if it's not as bad, I need to know. So I know, I'm assuming what actions I need to take, right? I almost want to jump into 19. Like, I'm excited to find out what happens next. But this is the end of Genesis today. How bad is it over there? And then, like, now I want to know, like, how much, if he has, so he has the ability to hear the outcry of sin in heaven. It's not just prayers, it's not just the cries of his following, of his believers that are reaching his ears, it's also the sin of the unrighteous, it's also the sin of them who's reaching towards heaven. So he's hearing all of that still in this day and age. He's an unchanging God, so it's not like these capabilities he had in these ages, in these years, are gone. Let me get on to Psalms. You know the anticipation you feel when you're walking into something, bracing for it to be bad, but hoping it's not going to be as bad as you think it is? And not only that, he was on his way there, walking slowly, had time to chill with Abraham, feast. God does everything at his own leisure. So he's hearing this outcry. He's not letting it pressure him. He's not letting the worry of the sin there rush him into action. He's not letting that interrupt his time getting towards Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, like he waited for this whole feast to be prepared from start to finish, from slaughter to plate. He waited for this whole feast to be prepared. He stayed with someone that he set aside as and made a covenant pair with. He had time. Essentially, he had time to chill with a person that he loved before heading into this place that he feels so such the outcry of sin happening in, right? So all of this is falling apart in this corner, but even in this corner, I'm still going to take time to appreciate my present moment with a loved one. I'm still, when I'm preparing them, holding on to the hope, or I'm worried and my concerns and I have to go see what's going on over there. That anxiety of all of that wasn't rocking his experience with Abraham and Sarah and that feast and enjoying some time in the shade. He had business to go take care of. He had work calling out to him to pay attention to. Yet him and the figures with him were able to enjoy a relaxing time in the shade, and then slowly walk over to have a full conversation, not at his own pace, but at the pace of Abraham, who he's giving the patience and this area to speak into him, to question, hey, I know you're worried about all of that. What are you gonna do? And he ran down and kept asking, so what would you do if this, and what would you do if that, or what would you do if this? Imagine when you have something going on and you're anxious about it and you want to just get and try to handle what you don't know, what you're not really sure. There's a whole fog about the situation anyway. You're not really sure what's going on, but you know something's up and you know you have to do something, but you're trying to assess the situation. In that stage where you're trying to assess the situation, there's usually a rush. There's obviously a shaking, anxiety, but to still have grace and patience and be like, okay, ask me all of the questions about the situation I'm unsure about, and I'll give you as much grace to answer you calmly and to answer you in an unangered way. Come on, think about it. Really, really think about it. The last time you were anxious about a situation and somebody came, I don't know, and kept asking you questions about this situation, tell me you weren't ready to snap. You were like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I just did this to my sister a little minute ago, where she was asking me questions about a video I was unsure what to do with. I don't know. Just stop. I didn't plan that far. I don't even know what the situation looks like, but to be unsure, to be anxious, to be unsteady, to still have work calling out for you, to still have something begging and crying out for your attention, yet to patiently and thoroughly enjoy the present moment of relaxing under the shade for a feast, to thoroughly and patiently enjoy the present moment of having a conversation with someone who's asking you questions about the source of your anxieties, the source of your concerns, but to patiently answer them and reply with grace, not for the sake of your mental clarity, because you have as much clarity as you have, but to follow their train of thought for the sake of their mental stress and clarity. Because Abraham at that point came from a place of, I'm stressed out. I don't know how you're going to react to this whole town, this whole city. What will you do if it happens this way? Okay, what will you do if it's only this? Is that okay? What about if it's only 30? Will you still wipe away a whole town? So he's giving him okay, I don't know. If it's like that, then I will spare the town for the sake of them. Or if it's like that, then I will spare the town. He took the grace to calm down the person who was actually concerned, or whose concerns were being so overwhelmed in that moment. Maybe not overwhelmed. Maybe overwhelmed is not the thing I want to say. I feel like I said what I could say. I hope that was coherent and understood. But what I took from that was just be a little bit more patient and a ton more present, even when there are circumstances calling and begging for your attention. Moving on, we have Psalms to read. I'm gonna go a little quiet because I need to do some highlighting. The whole chapter. I don't even know how to highlight this. Do I note it? Okay. We're in Psalms 5. This is also from David. And it's supposed to be accompanied by the flute. I think I'm... Okay. O Lord, hear me as I pray. Pay attention to my groaning. Listen to my cry for help, my King and my God. For I pray to no one but you. Listen to my voice in the morning, Lord. Each morning I bring my request to you and wait expectantly. O God, you take no pleasure in wickedness. You cannot tolerate the sins of the wicked. Therefore, the proud may not stand in your presence, for you hate all who do evil. You will destroy those who tell lies. The Lord detests murderers and deceivers. Because of your unfailing love, I can enter your house. I will worship at your temple with deepest awe. Lead me in the right path, O Lord, or my enemies will conquer me. Make your way plain for me to follow. My enemies cannot speak a truthful word. Their deepest desire is to destroy others. Their talk is foul like the stench from an open grave. Their tongues are filled with flattery. O God, declare them guilty. Let them be caught in their own traps. Drive them away because of their many sins, for they have rebelled against you. But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them sing joyful praises forever. Spread your protection over them, that all who love your name may be filled with joy. For you bless the godly, O Lord. You surround them with your shield of love. My favorite line? Make your way plain for me to follow. Okay, I think that is all of the reading for today. I feel like there was such... It's not exactly that there was a lot that happened in these couple readings, but it was that the emotions behind certain actions and the emotions behind receiving certain messages were, I mean, so human, right? Like, a lot of it was so human that I wanted to remind myself of when I hear these stories and it's just like, oh yeah, Sarah couldn't hold her faith and da da da, and she didn't have trust in the Lord, and blah blah blah. We always feel too not enough for something. You know, oh, I'm too not this. I'm not this for that. You know, I always feel unqualified somehow. Yeah, and God's making some moves here. He's making some heavy promises. He's like, this land's all gonna be yours. It's gonna be your descendants. Isaac will be great. He'll be the great leader of these lines of descendants. Ishmael, while I will bless him, he's not the person I'm exactly entering this covenant for. That's Isaac. You know, he's making his will very clear, precisely known, and he's telling it all to Abraham, who's now charged with telling everyone in his household that these are the messages God is giving me, right? And then he goes through the whole Mark of the Covenant scene. I'm going to call it the scene. I'm sure that was a scene, bro. Like, the day you get this message, you round everyone up. The Lord came to me. Let's say you said this with all. The Lord came to me and told me what was promised to me and my descendants. And because it was promised to me and my descendants, you all have to lose a little bit of foreskin. I wonder if any people ran away from his household that day. But it just goes to show that your faith needs to be radical, right? So you get this message, you get this understanding of what's going on and what the Lord is crystal clear driving you to do. Move. How will you move? How will you move from that message on? How much time will you allow to exist? How long will it take you to move in obedience? Even when you're going to look crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yep. What else happens? That conversation, I feel like the conversation between Abraham and the Lord, even from the moment of the feast, the moment he was visited by those figures, there was such an air of grace that kind of entered into that whole scene, right? So like these guys walk in, he's like, yeah, do as you say, prepare those things for me if that is your will. God didn't ask for this. He didn't walk up and be like, yo, I'm here, your Lord, give me food, give me water, give me blah blah blah. He was walking, his likeness got noticed by Abraham, and Abraham welcomed him into his home with full hospitality. And there is also a grace in accepting hospitality. God didn't go, oh no, I'm in a rush, I gotta go. Yeah, do what you say. And waited for goats to be slaughtered, for bread to be baked, for water to be fetched from the well or whatever water source, for cheeses and fruits to be laid out, and then was waited on in the shade while having work to be done. And in the conversation, also an air of grace. The figures knew to give him a moment of privacy with him and Abraham, and continued walking towards where they needed to be, And it wasn't that the Lord was quick to anger in this conversation about unclear circumstances or what's really going on. God even holding out hope that it's not going to be as bad as it is. I'm going to go find out and see. I hope it's not as bad as I hear it in heaven. Yeah. Yeah, I like these readings. I like these last few ones. It was just so poignant. God, as always, provide me with clarity after I've finished reading your word, after I've ingested everything the story is trying to tell me. Provide me with the not just the definition or the stereotypical explanations. Just give me the insight of your intent in writing these stories and the stories being passed down through the generations. As I read the Bible, as I connect with the Bible, let the word breathe into me to modify my behavior, to modify my existence, so that I can grow into a version of myself that pleases your eyes, your ears, your heart, and your spirit. In the name of Jesus, by the blood of Christ, I pray. Amen. That's all for the stream today. Pray for me as I figure out the rest of all of these. Soon enough, I'm gonna figure it out. It don't make sense to me yet, but I'm gonna work on finding some software that allows me to screen share and, invite people up and do all of the good stuff. Till then, bye. Have a good one.